What's the most satisfying time a gold digger got what they deserved? A few months after my mother passed away from ovarian cancer, I returned to university and wasn't around to keep my dad company. To feel less lonely, my father would go down to the local bar and have a few drinks with his mates. This became a daily ritual. I, being the understanding daughter, knew that in time father would eventually meet someone else that made him happy again. And he did, a much younger woman. This happened much earlier than I had anticipated, but I wasn't one to complain. After graduating from university, my father eventually introduced his girlfriend to me. Those ritual afternoons of drinking at the local bar resulted in him meeting his girlfriend, who was working as a waitress there. I had seen pictures of her on his phone and no, I wasn't snooping around. I was helping him install an app, and unbeknownst to him had come across her pictures accidentally. I didn't approach my father about this, but knew in his own time he would tell me about her himself. I wouldn't call our family rich, but we have always been comfortable. I had been to private schools all my life. Went to boarding school overseas. School holidays were always spent in another country, and so on. Living a comfortable lifestyle. I had iPhones, iMacs, brand makeup, designer labels, expensive perfumes, and so on. I was never spoiled, but most things were gifts from family and friends. I had a wonderful upbringing. Now I am not one to judge, but I knew right from the start that she was the epitome of a gold digger. There were a few things about her that had irritated my friends and family about her, but I never really saw it as an issue. She was very young. My dad was 51, she was 18. I was 19, but it was not a big issue. She was from a lower social class. I never had a problem with this. She partied, smoked and drank. Heck, I did the same, but to a lesser amount. A few months into meeting her, her behavior was starting to set me off. She would be out all weekend for parties, would come home, cook up a storm and leave the house. Because I hadn't found a job yet, I was living with my dad temporarily. I didn't mind cleaning up after her, but after having to do it every day, that's when I got irritated. Thankfully, I was successful in getting a job and shifted to a city 4 hours away. It was such a huge relief to get away from her. Every long weekend, I would travel up to see Dad and make sure he was okay. But that was when it all started. Anytime I had received anything as a gift from my dad, she would always say, "Why did you buy this for her and didn't buy it for me?" These constant comparisons were ticking me off, but as always, I never made an issue out of it and I kept my mouth shut. Because she was a social butterfly, she never had the time to stay home or do any sort of cleaning around the house. She failed in her studies that my father had paid for and chose instead to spend her weekends drinking and entertaining her multiple boyfriends that she had kept hidden from my father. After my father had complained about the state of the house being messy, she then suggested that they should employ one of her female cousins as a housemaid because she was struggling. My father agreed and her cousin became our housemaid. House was cleaner, but her behavior was still the same. My father, being a managing director of an exporting company, was always away on international business trips. His girlfriend took these opportunities to invite her multiple boyfriends over to the house. At one stage, my father had gotten very ill. She lacked a sense of empathy and continued partying and drinking. She only came home to see my father when she ran out of money. Keep in mind that by this time, my dad had bought her countless smartphones, laptops, took her overseas for holidays, and also paid for her education twice, and she still failed both. Throughout this time, I had been in a relationship with my boyfriend for a year. She had tried to ruin that relationship as well, spreading lies to people and feeding my father with misleading stories about him. None of which were true. It was during one of my father's business trips where she took his luxury cars and drove drunk to one of her boyfriend's houses. She ended up crashing the car. After numerous attempts of trying to tell my dad to get out of this toxic relationship, this event proved to be the turning point. My father called it quits on the relationship there and then and advised me to cut all connections with her. I happily did so, not that there was any strong connection to begin with. But it was karma that had the final say. She went straight into a relationship with one of her boyfriends. Then he became violent towards her and the great lifestyle she had experienced with my father was now a thing of the past. And to top things off, my father ended up marrying her cousin, the maid. While she is now struggling to get a steady job and find another relationship that was as fulfilling as the one she had with my father.